One phrase sums up this podcast: digital addiction. Moms and dads, this podcast today addresses how to have successful conversations regarding very hard topics with your kids and teenagers. Stay tuned for the Front Parking Spot podcast. Hello, moms. Welcome to the Front Parking Spot podcast. I am so glad you're here. I'm Jennifer Bosma, wife, mom, grandma, former teacher for 23 years, and now a Christian children's book author and your podcast host. Are you a faith-based mom trying to live out a Christian life for your family? Do you want to learn more ways that you can have power over your child's spiritual growth? Inside this podcast, you will find tried and true ideas to grow in your faith and be the best wife and mom you can be. So listen in as you're cleaning up, doing the drive, or matching that sock, and be encouraged to know that God has his front parking spot set aside for you. Hello, moms, and welcome to the Front Parking Spot podcast. Today, I have Doug Moore. Doug Moore was a former wilderness trail guide and a youth pastor and is a current registered nurse and author of The Vanguard Project, Equipping Fathers to Fight for Their Sons. Through his training as a sexual assault nurse examiner, Doug brings a clinically grounded, field-tested approach to the conversation every father needs to have, but most don't know how to start. His book, released in March of 2026, and it's available on Amazon, gives dads a practical roadmap for leading their sons through the battle against pornography and digital addiction. Doug, welcome to the Front Parking Spot podcast.
Thank you, Jennifer. Very excited to be here.
I am so glad. And before we started, we realized that this is going to be the perfect podcast for Father's Day. And so if you're a mom, single mom, married mom, you can share this with your husbands, the dads, the uncles, everyone. So thanks for being my special Father's Day podcast, Doug. Well, tell us, you can launch off your bio from a wilderness director and a youth pastor and author and now a nurse. You have seen it all. Tell us a little bit about your message today, Doug.
Well, Jennifer, thank you again for having me. I had so much fun earlier in my life, and now I'm a little bit older, but I used to have the joy of taking boys out into the wilderness. And there was so many fun experiences. I share a lot of those in my book. And as I transitioned out of that, I became a youth pastor, and now I'm a registered nurse. And one of the things that I've seen, and we can probably all agree, is the rampant onslaught of how digital addiction, which can lead to consumption of pornography or AI, has really taken hold of our generation. And I still work quite a bit with our local church, working with youth and young men, and I just see the how it is really taking hold. One of the things I noticed as a nurse, we always take the pulse of someone. And I don't know if you've noticed this, you probably have, where you'll have a young man and even young women, but we'll focus on the men for a second here, that their vision or their optical pulse kind of changes, the way they talk to us, the way they interact with us. And I call it a digital fog. So I've noticed that a lot, that many of our young men are tending to shut down. They have the short answers like, yeah, where they've gone from like very conversational. So I wanted to make a difference. I want to change the narrative. I really want to help raise young men that can respect women. I have two older daughters, and I want to help them have godly men that will lead them well and really respect women in a big way. So I'm not only I have an 11-year-old son also, but my heart is really a girl dad mainly.
The digital world, it is unlike anything that you and I experienced when we were younger. It's a whole different battle. Where do you find the kids? I mean, I remember seeing it in the classroom, starting with the Fortnite, which we talked about real quick, at young ages. What are some of the things that you can advise parents with this new digital world that we're in?
Yeah, it is the most innocent things that we are least suspecting. My son plays Minecraft, and we're very careful about that. But there is some apps out there that are intentionally built to trip our kids up. And I will mention this, that Roblox, I'll just say, is one of those that is probably the biggest, I would say, instigator of this, that many of our kids are playing this, and lots of games, but I will point to Roblox that anybody can create on Roblox and create any type of environment. The heart of what I'm trying to get at is not only using filtration, but it really is having a conversation with our kids. I'll jump ahead here, but in the book, I have something called on ramp questions. And these are questions that you can have with your kids that begin the conversation. It
Mhm.
allows for them, us as parents, to just build a narrative. Many of us have really great relationships with our kids, so we may not need that, but there may be moms or dads listening that don't know how to really start those conversations. So the on ramp questions are just an easy way to begin. And that's where we find some of the stuff that's going on in kids' lives. Like one of the questions I asked my son Gus a lot is like, "Hey, how was your day today? Was there anything that kind of tripped you up?" And we've been able to build that conversation together and always check in like, "Hey, are we good?" So the way that I really advise is just really starting to work to build relationships with our kids and really knowing where they're using their devices.
Yeah, I like that question. Has anything tripped you up? Because when you say, "How was your day today?" They're just gonna say, "Good."
Good.
It's a quick,
Yeah.
like, they don't wanna elaborate more, and I think you made a comment that your silence is not neutral. "I'm not gonna say anything at all. I'm okay. I don't wanna push the button," but believe me, when they're under 18, that is the time to do it. But
Yep.
so how can you give us some teasers in your book about how you would start that conversation, the hard ones, to address these big digital pitfalls that people can get?
Yeah.
What is a
Um,
couple that you can just tease us with that parents can utilize?
well, again, just starting with some basics, but I will say this: if the, let me back up, Jennifer. Like, if someone, say a mom or dad, has found something on their device, I will say, if that's you, there's a place in the book that's starting for you. But some of the on-ramp questions that I like to ask is just like, "Hey, what did you do today that was really fun or exciting? What did you see?" These are engaging questions, and as an educator, just
Mhm.
really asking these type of prompting questions like, "Was there anything crazy that you and your friends did today? What was the most exciting thing that happened for you today?" Those lead to things like, "Well, yeah, me and Johnny today, we were" sorry, I use Johnny and Susie a lot, but "Me and Johnny
Right, that's
today,
okay.
we were playing on devices and we did so and so, we saw this," and you're like, "Oh," that can lead to a conversation that they may not our younger kids may not know that it's something that they need to really be cautious about and really just educating them.
You mentioned that sometimes your sons will get like a fog. Like, what would you describe the fog? Like, how would you describe it for a parent who can't quite put their finger on it? And what do you do to get them out of this digital fog?
Right. Yeah, and again, it can either be there are kids that are not gonna always make eye contact, but I believe, and I know from my experience, is
Mhm.
that it's when those kids are shutting down, the questions become very short. We had dinner the other night with some friends, and you could see night and day of the 2 boys. One boy is just very engaging, conversational with the family, and then the other boy's like, "Uh-huh, yeah." They are carrying something. They're carrying a weight. And as those 2 boys left, the mom of the other boy goes, "Yeah, I think he's just really struggling right now." The mom understands that there's been a shift. So we know our kids and I mean, it is growing up, right? We
Right?
know that something has shifted. We know that something is different about the way they're engaging with us.
How do you, when you notice that, when you notice all of a sudden they're pulling away or they're spending
Mhm.
more time in their room or they're not being, they want to eat dinner and get up and go right away. What would you tell that mom or dad who is experiencing that in their son?
Yeah, not to keep going on and on here, but I think that the best thing is just to sit them down and really have a conversation, but also it may be doing a device audit, which would be threatening but non-threatening in a non-threatening way. Let me just back up here, Jennifer, and say my whole approach is not building shame or guilt, but just really trying to engage our kids in questions. So just to give you a question that I like to use, I just pulled one up here that I wanted to share with you. It says, here's a serious question. It's something that never challenges, it never disagrees with you, it never requires anything for you talking about AI. So bringing a conversation to our kids like, hey, have you heard about AI? Have you heard what it's doing? Do you have friends that struggle with AI? Or what's the difference between someone actually knows you and someone that's programmed to make you feel known? So those are questions that I built around AI and helping the kids with that. The other one that I really like to use, and this was what I was getting up to a minute ago, is what's the funniest or weirdest video you've seen online this week? So here's my tip. If you feel the kids are really pulling away from you, one of the things I like to do is build conversation and ask these questions. Do you ever see things online in games or videos or ads that make you feel weird, confused, or uncomfortable? These are all in the book. These are questions that, we can do with our kids and really help them out.
I like them because they're open-ended. You're kind of putting it out there, and you may think they're gonna go a certain way with that conversation, but then they end up going a completely different one. So it is really the open-ended questions because
Mhm.
that is where you're gonna, like, delve deeper. Wow. Well, okay, when you were a wilderness trail guide, I'm assuming that was a couple how many years ago was that? A
Well,
while
it
ago?
would have been about, yeah, I mean, 20 years ago, but, yeah,
Okay, but,
but I
things
still
don't
do a lot
change.
outdoors with the kids. Yes, absolutely.
Right, and so when you were a boys wilderness trail guide, I mean, it just looks different. I mean, people say, "Oh, the times now are so bad." The times have been terrible since the Old Testament when you think of what all went on, it's just different. So, back in trail guide times, we didn't have the AI, we didn't have the whole digital crux like we do now. What would you say were the problems back then that your boys would vocalize to
Mhm.
you? Because 'Cause you're in the woods, they're gonna open their hearts, and how are those similar to the ones now? Because I don't think they're that much different, but tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's not really much different. I mean, there's always been distractions, there's always been temptations for our young men. So back then, it would have been something printed that they may have obtained, right? I think one of the things that I saw a lot as I'm doing the wilderness trail guiding is that the kids are just longing to be known, and a lot of times they're searching for something, right?
Mhm.
And so that's the heart of this is really engaging. So compared to the then and now, I still take kids in the woods, but not as adventurous as I used to, and it's the same. I write about a story about a boy that could never be bored, and we take these boys in the woods, whether it be the Fortnite boy or a boy that's into back then it was into Magic the Gathering or Dungeons and Dragons, and they were really into that. Not that those are necessarily bad, it's just what the kids were engaged in. And constantly, the boys constantly thinking about that all the time. That's all they talk about for the first day. But day two, it's like they wake up from some type of coma and they start smelling the air the first time in a different way or cracking a stick over their leg or building a fire. And I think that is a very beautiful picture that I always love to see happen. So it's not really changed. The boys
Mhm.
want to be known, they want to be heard, and they're always searching for something. So when they're looking for conversation, they're looking for something. One of the protocols I talk about a lot is the HALT protocol, which is when we're hungry. This is for adults too, hungry, alone, lonely, or tired, or angry. Sorry, I got the A wrong. Angry, lonely, or tired. We start searching for something. And this is the what I've noticed a lot in these boys that I take out in the woods.
And we're not that much different. When we're lonely,
No.
when we're tired, we grab our phones. We're grabbing our phone
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
we're like starting the endless scroll, the Instagram scroll. And my husband does not have any social media except, the business ones or whatever. But he said, wait, Instagram is just a bunch of ads. He goes, is it always all the sponsors, the ads? And I'm like, you're right. Because back in the day, it was more like seeing the relatives post the wedding pictures, and there's some of that. But mostly it's advertisements or AI generated content, pretty much for the most part.
Yeah.
It really has changed. How much is too much, Doug? Like, I mean, I am not and I've never been a gaming mom because I have girls, maybe that's why,
Mhm.
but what is too much? Where's the balance?
Yeah, it's all about taking things in small bites. I believe, and I know, and I've seen the boys that are constantly engaged in, say, Minecraft, or that's my experience, but I know there's other games out there. When it becomes the topic of all the conversations where you're not able to really engage, and I think as parents, we know the pulse. We know our children if we're engaged enough. So if a child cannot separate themselves from it, that it is something that they constantly talk about and think about,
Mm,
believe that that is your red flag.
okay.
We really limit times that we allow our son Gus to use his iPad and use Minecraft, but I noticed, and once he has been on, he cannot turn it off for a long time.
Okay.
We know from statistics, I'm just talking about digital addiction and pornography, and that the youngest ages that kids are being exposed to that is 8. And biologically, we know that there's dopamine. You know, you and I are having a great conversation right now.
Mhm.
That's going to give us a dopamine because it's joyful. It's joyful to talk
Right.
to people. But when kids are exposed to digital addiction or games, their dopamine level can go from, say, a 2 to an 8. Okay. And our brains really cannot process that in a way that God really designed it to. So it's hard to come down off of that. And it's always going to be a part of the conversation. I If it becomes an obsession, and we know that too, you already alluded to that, like, I wanna put down my phone, I wanna look that up. That is our red flag. The red flag when we can't really engage in a good conversation, and setting up good digital boundaries
Mhm.
matters. But here's the reality. Kids are gonna be able to get around every filter because 'cause they're smarter than us. I have a story that on a mountain bike team that we participated with our kids were using the Bible app to send pictures to each other. They weren't allowed to have other devices or other apps on their phones, so that's what they were using. So they are gonna get around it. The
Wait,
heart of what I'm really yeah, I mean,
they were
it's
sending,
very
like,
s
pornography pictures using the Bible
they
app?
were sending, yeah, pictures, the
Oh,
inappropriate pictures to each other. And, I mean, imagine the parents' reactions, imagine how weird just feel like, "Wow, the Bible app is not even safe." And you feel like you're helpless. I wanna give tools, and the tools is understanding, A, how do we get our kids out of digital fog, and how do we build conversations? One of the things that I really push is that you and I both know this, we cannot parent on our own. So there's a protocol that I put in the book called a shield wall. You ever seen a movie like, say, Gladiator,
mhm.
or where soldiers are using shields and they build a wall to protect themselves? That's the analogy. And so you have people walking alongside of you. So that's gonna be like an uncle figure, a pastor figure. These are the ones that I've identified, but it can be anybody, uncle, pastor, grandfather figure, and even your son to have a battle buddy. They're gonna walk alongside of you and help you. You and I probably grew up in small communities, or I don't know your story, but, if I was doing something wrong outside, my best friend's mom's calling my mom and saying, "Hey,
Right,
I saw
right.
Doug doing this today." It's not like that anymore. So that's the same principle. We put people alongside of us to help fight this battle, and God can put those right people, and you got to find the right people. And I tell you in the book, how do you look for people? I spell it
Mhm.
out, like, how does this dad or this person treat their family? How do they talk to their family? It's just to help you battle and Nehemiah 4 really talks about this too. I won't go on. That's a whole hour long sermon, but it's the same thing that Nehemiah did when he rebuilt the walls.
Right. As you are telling me this story, it's bringing back to my mind one of my favorite moms and families. I had her daughters in my classroom, and I think it was fourth grade. And one of the little girls, the mom came up and told me, and she knew that I had daughters. So she kind of came to me as a trusted confidant and asked, it was many years ago. So these people are well, you know, raised now. But she was so traumatized because her daughter stumbled upon something pornography popped into her computer. And it just like she was searching something online and then she had pictures and the little girl did not know what to do and she went to her mom and she told thank goodness she told her mom that she didn't know how to what this was, why it was there. And so the mom just did her best parenting she knew to try, but you can't, to try to correct it or do something to put a Band-Aid on it, but you can't unsee that. And I think her
Yeah.
daughter was 9. So I am asking this question as the moms, dads listening. What filters or what do you do to protect your kids when the uncles are, you're not around, they're with their kids or at their friend's house, whatever? What is something that they can do right now to, I know filters
Yeah.
can protect it all, but what would you recommend?
Well, I recommend having the conversation about
Okay.
being on guard. Okay.
Okay.
So I have a principle that I talk to my son, Gus, about. He'll probably hate it that I keep saying his name, but we call it shield up. It's just easy for us. And shield up means that if you see something,
Mhm.
close the computer immediately and come talk to me. So, one, teaching them like,
Good.
hey, there may be pictures out there. And if you see it, immediately close the computer or whatever, walk away and come to mommy or come to dad, our
Mm,
mom and dad. We may have older people, so not mommy and dad, but we're
right.
going to talk about it. And the thing that they know when they come to us is we're not going to make them feel bad about it. There is gonna be this is a no shame situation, like, "Hey, gosh, yes, I know that was really bad. I'll tell you what, if it's in the nighttime, we're gonna sleep on this. In the morning, you and I are gonna make a battle plan, and we're gonna figure out how to go forward, and we're gonna figure out how to fix whatever way that you saw this. If it's your cousin or whoever showed it to, we're gonna have a conversation with them. It's not gonna be threatening. We're not gonna be angry. We're just gonna have a loving conversation. Now that sounds all rosy, like, "Oh, little house
Right.
on the prairie," but that's the heart of it, and I believe that starting there. But,
Mhm.
I've had a dad's like, "Why?" 2 things. I've had a parent's like, "I don't wanna talk to my kid about this. Wanna wait." And I was like, "Well, if you don't have the conversation now, somebody else is going to."
Mm,
Hopefully, my mom doesn't listen to this, she may, but it's not a bad thing, but I really my parents didn't take a lot of time teaching me about the birds and the bees, as we used to call it, right? So
right.
I had an this is gonna sound very funny, but I used like an Encyclopedia Britannica, and I'm like, looked up the words
Yeah.
and learned that way. That's probably not the most
Mm,
practical way, but that's I was curious. And
right.
we want to be the source. We want
Mhm.
to be the source for our kids. So letting them know and having a conversation. It's say if they see something like, "Hey, you're not in trouble. And it's because I love you that I wanna talk to you. That's I want to prepare you. There's stuff on the internet that's designed to trap you, and
Mhm.
it's pictures and videos of people without their clothes on, and you're like, "Ah, do I really wanna say that?" But we want to prepare. They may run out of the room.
Be
My
like,
kids,
"No."
when
Yeah.
"I don't wanna hear that. No, 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 no,
Right.
no." And but what we want them to know is, like, here's the thing I want you to know. Almost every boy, we'll say boy, at some time will be exposed to this, and it might pop up by accident. A friend might show you, and when it happens, you're gonna be excited, maybe confused, and not know what to do about it. This is all I have this all scripted into the book, but here's what I need you to know. You can come straight to me. It's not because you're bad. It's
Mhm.
because your brain is wired to respond to it, and that's why you're having those isn't wired to respond to it.
Mhm.
Sorry. But here's the thing, that stuff is like poison wrapped in candy. So it's a whole script that I have that you can adapt for yourself, but just to really help have these conversation. It looks good at first, but it changes your brain and makes it harder to have real healthy relationships later. And that's the heart of what I'm really want to get at is let's be proactive. And we're not always allowed to be, right? Like the story you shared. But even in that situation, like, sorry you saw that, but just love them through it. I know that sounds very simple, but there are I believe I know that works because I've seen it work.
Well, I love that because you're being proactive because you kind of always wonder, I remember as a parent, you're wondering like how soon you can share this, and I think if it comes into your mind that it's time to share, it's time to share. Because I, like you, Doug, I went to a little Catholic school and I learned about the birds and the bees on the bus. coming home, and I was a Catholic school crew, like everyone, all the little
Yeah.
parishioner kids, that's where I learned, like, wait, what? And my parents didn't talk about it. So that was a generation. And I think parents don't want to talk about it, but what you can do too is you don't have to unload the whole mother load in the beginning. It could be bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And letting them know that if you ever see anything, you may be like, "Wait, what was that?" And you may get like, "Oh, I can't show my mom and dad, I may get in trouble." But if you address it beforehand, that they're not gonna get in trouble, and you wanna know and you wanna help them, and you'll be so appreciative and like,
Yeah.
"Team family, we got this, and show me you're not in trouble."
Right.
So I think
There's
kids
so
are
many. Yeah, and I'm sorry to talk over you, but there's so many young men today struggling because their brains have been rewired. They
Mhm.
don't know what to do with this information. And hope is not lost. If this a mom's listening or dad's listening, it's like, I think my son is already
Yeah.
in addicted to this. It's a harder conversation, but you can go up to him and say the same thing. "Hey, you're not in trouble. I know you're struggling with this, and it's okay. We love you." The relief that a young man is going to feel to know that their struggle is not gonna bring shame, but you want to walk alongside of them is a very powerful thing. There's a young man in our community that has struggled with internet pornography or just AI addiction. I know we've been facing, but we're just talking about any type of addiction, right?
Right, right.
And he struggled to the point where it really caused him to have some jail time in his life. And one of the things that he told his mom is that I wish I would have known how easy it would have been to tell you what I was struggling with. Since he was 13, was struggling. And this is a mom that they weren't allowed to touch anything electronic. It had to be in the living room, so they're monitoring everything. But somehow, some way, she and they said, "We didn't have the proactive conversation of what to do if you saw it. We were just like, 'Don't look at it,'" and so he said, "I wish I could talk to you about it because it would have changed everything." And honestly, I'd been working on this book for a long time, but this was the catalyst. I was like, I've got to do something because I want to arm a generation to where we can have real authentic relationships and also really know how God's blueprint for us, what the design of intimacy is. Sorry to ramble, but that's just very
No.
passionate about it.
No, that's really good. So this is you're telling me so this boy had jail time, you said? Jail time.
Yeah, he's currently he's a young man now.
Okay.
Um,
And he
and
was from a
and
family,
he's in prison. Yeah.
and he was a family that had everything, like, like the bolts on, like, don't do this,
Yeah.
sleepovers, and then he got it some way too. So moms, dads, whoever's listening, you don't know. There's an element that you can't control. So it's better, as Doug is saying, to have those proactive conversations and have that because, there's so many times like that you can't. And I think sometimes too, as parents want to make themselves seem like perfect, that we never went through the problems. And I've
Oh,
heard
yeah.
from other people too, when a parent acts vulnerable to their children, like I remember when I saw whatever magazine, whatever the
Mhm.
thing was that you saw
Sure.
growing
Sure.
up, or when you share that with them, it kind of will, I think, break down their walls. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And one of the things I talk about is our scars
Mhm.
that we have do not disqualify us. They actually make us the right person to have that conversation. And it brings relief. I don't know if you've ever struggled with something and you were able to share it with somebody and they're like, "Oh my gosh, me too." And you're like, "Really? That's not just me." So our wrecks that I like to say, we've been redeemed by Jesus and
Mhm.
they become the trail markers that show our children the way home. It gives us such a better voice in their life.
And the devil wants to keep us quiet
Oh,
because
absolutely.
once we release it and share our concerns or our fears or anything like that, once we share what we're worried about, when we share it, it doesn't seem so silly anymore. It's like it's out there and it just can get, the flaming arrows are quenched, So once you keep things in secret, the devil wants it in secret. So I would advise moms, dads, get it out in the open. I think that's so good.
Even if they're struggling still, if
Yes.
if moms or dads are struggling with AI addiction or digital addiction or even pornography, that bring it out and open. Find someone that you can confide into. We know that's what we need to do. Just take the bold step, because the freedom that is on the other side. And think about your kids. Think about the conversation you want to have with your kids. Don't let that shame keep you from, like, oh, I cannot talk to my son about our daughter about this because I'm struggling with it now. Bring it out in the open. Use it as a tool. You're like, you are going to be the vanguard. The whole vanguard principle is not someone that leads from the back, but to lead from the front. Take charge. Be willing to make a bold step in your life, talk to a pastor or whoever, and say, look, I'm struggling with this. You can, even if your child is old enough, like, I'm struggling with it. And I don't want you to struggle with this. I don't want you to have this in your life. And I want to lead you in a better way.
Mm. That was gonna be my next question. What does a
Sorry.
parent No, no, you're great. So, if a parent knows that they may be struggling with it, but they don't wanna admit it to their child or whatever, or they know their kids are having a struggle, I mean, we have your book, but where else should they go? And I want you to talk about your book in just a second. So, what does
Sure.
that parent do that feels they're already gone, kid's not speaking, not talking out,
Oh,
not
yeah.
admitting anything, conversations fall flat? What should that parent do when they know in their heart of hearts that their son or daughter is having a problem?
Well, this is one of the things I love about the shield wall. And you may not have this already in place, but there may be people that your son or daughter trust
Mhm.
over you.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't want to make a bold statement here, but there's a point where our kids think we're not smart anymore.
Right.
And they think, like, we're giving them advice. They're like, yeah, you don't really know. Like, I'm helping my kids with math. And they're like, Dad, that's not how the teacher showed me. I'm like, all
Right.
right.
Yeah.
So if you have someone in your life, the kids have in their life, you're like, why don't you talk to aunt, uncle,
Mhm.
pastor? But kids may be too far gone for that. And I do have a chapter in the book called The Long Siege, The Long Goodbye. And they may be, you've tried everything. And all we can do is lean in and lean in and lean in, and don't relent, and love them, even when they don't want to be loved. One of my favorite sayings from my grandmother is, kill them with kindness. Now, her principle was something else, but I really
Right.
believe that constantly love, constantly praying, because no matter what book we read, no matter what strategy we tried, they may be too far gone, but their hope is not lost. We can just continue to lean in and pray. There's not a perfect answer to that. I wish I knew,
No, it's
because
so good.
that would be a bestseller, right?
Yeah, it would be.
But
Well, tell us about your book. I mean, in your book, is it good for moms and dads with daughters and sons? And tell us how the listener can find
100%.
it.
Yes, absolutely. One things I want to tell you is that I want to speak to the mom that may be doing this alone. My book is for you also. And there are conversations in there. So this book can be adapted in every way. The heart of the book is, there's wilderness stories that I share in the book to relate to ways that we can combat digital addiction, pornography, AI. And it's really a field manual. It's very dense, but it's an easy read. Everybody that's read it has said this is very easy, very approachable. Not only, Jennifer, we've written a book, but we are putting together one-day conferences for dads to come in and sons to talk about that. So truly, that was where we were going to start. But truly, the heart of this is, I've written a book to help you have good, rich relationships and conversations with your kids, no matter if you're a dad or a mom, a grandmother, a coach, or a mentor. It gives you the tools that you need to have these conversations. And on the side, my wife and I are actually working on tools for girls also, which is a whole another ball game, because girls
Mhm.
deal with the whole. My wife is really writing that, but I'm a dad of daughters. You
Right,
know,
right.
it. I think every parent that I talk to says the same thing. I don't know what to say, so that's what the book is. I put the scripts in there. They're not perfect. I'm not the end all be all, but they are a good starting point.
Oh,
We don't, they're just scripts. They're not just theories. And then you can throw the script away once you have a great conversation, sorry,
mhm.
getting clubbed there, and speak from the heart. But having the words to start with will always start the conversation.
Wow. Doug, we can keep going on and on, but I am just so thankful for this honest conversation today, because I know our listeners will know families, their own kids, aunt and uncle, nieces or nephews, grandkids. Your message is so relevant. And I'm so thankful that you wrote this book, because I think it's going to be a great field map and road map for families that are navigating this exact problem in their lives. Thank you so much for
Thank you,
being here.
Jennifer. I
And
appreciate it so much. Thank you for letting me talk about it today.
oh, and you're great. And I will have all of your contact information in the show notes as well. So thanks for being here, Doug. We appreciate you so much and your work. Well, mamas, thank you so much for joining in. I know you are super busy doing all the things that can consume your day, but you took a couple of minutes to learn how God wants to build you up in your faith, family, and life. And He wants to applaud you for this. Please subscribe and review my show. This helps other moms tune in as well. I'd love to connect with you on Instagram at Front Parking Spot, on Facebook at Front Parking Spot Mom Community, or my website at jenniferbosma.com. Have an Ephesians 3:20 type of day, mamas, and be encouraged as you go for the front parking spot in your life today. God bless.